You hear those sleigh bells ringling, sleigh bells jingling. Ooh, this is our Christmas special with Carl Jocumsen as our guest. And now, for the first time, I'm realizing my attempt to be festive and ring these bells just basically looks like I'm milking Rudolph. So all I can promise you is the rest of the show will get better because this week we have Carl Jocumsen on...
I'm Bob Cobb from the Bassmaster. Welcome to Mercer.
Happy Hump Day, all. Back in your life here, the Mercer podcast, the awkwardly honest fishing podcast. And of course, as you see, adorned in a beautiful Rudolph sweater, if you're listening to the audio version, I'm just explaining it to you. It is a beautiful Rudolph sweater with a pull-up hood adorned with antlers and, of course, bells that I just found out actually may make it look like you have udders. So rather than messing around, I'll get serious and I'll get into things because this is a Christmas special. You guys are stressed out. You guys are out there shopping, or maybe you're wrapping gifts, or maybe you're just hammered right now. But whatever you're doing, Christmas is in a few days. I hope it's awesome for all of you. And I hope this show makes it a little bit better with this week's guest, the one and only Carl Jocumsen. He makes things special no matter what time of year it is. So without further ado, let's bring him in right now. Carl Jocumsen.
Carl Jocumsen, thank you for doing this. And as you see, it is our festive special. And I've come dotted out in the Rudolph sweater. What do you think?
I like it. I feel like, do you just have that same hair going in that same shape? If you just...
Exactly. Oh, yeah. The treasure trail down here gets real interesting. It gets better, though. Watch. I mean, it gets better. It's not just a sweater. I mean, it's a...
Do not walk outside right now. It is hunting season.
Is this the biggest buck you've seen in the last few weeks?
I probably would have shot you.
Well, thank you for doing this. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, all that stuff. Obviously, this show. How long should I commit to this hood up? Do you think I should do it like the whole show so people halfway through tune in and wonder what the hell is wrong with me?
Who are you talking to? Rudolph the whole time.
What's going on in your life? Everything. I mean, you have a baby on the way. You're getting ready for an upcoming season. It's Christmas. You know, a lot. It seems like every time I see you, you're with a different person hunting somewhere.
Yeah, it's been a good off season. You know, the last, ever since I got here, sort of just, and I'm always just go. But like I've seen, there's just so many like amazing opportunities over here that I've watched for years and years and years and just wanted to be a part of, and I've just leading up to making the elites and those first couple in the elites and the first couple of years in FLW, like I didn't have time or the money or anything to do like any of that stuff. It just looked incredible. I'm like, man, I want to be able to do that. But I just was grinding so hard to make sure and trying to figure out the following year, especially visa stuff, the attorneys, like it just took up so much of my time. It was frustrating. And I was actually talking to my mate yesterday from back home in Australia, and he's like, I'm always telling everyone over here, it's not what you think. He's like the hardest worker ever. You got no idea like what he goes through. And then he's been seeing me hunting, like I'm telling him all day, he's got the best job. So, it's just been good last year, and this year I've actually, it's been nice to just sort of just have that break. Like in years and years, I've gone into the season, like sort of rolling off the back of the other season, zero rest, zero back off, and then almost burn out before you start the season. You're like scrambled. So it has been nice to spend time with other elite anglers, friends that I've made here in the US, seeing different parts of the US and then getting those opportunities to hunt with Brandon in Montana and Idaho, hunt with Gerald. Like, I've gotten to a spot where people of that kind of caliber are willing to take me, and I just appreciate like every day of it. So I learn a lot about myself. I learn a lot about fishing. I get a break off it. It's not like I'm stepping away from fishing totally. I'm actually using it as a tool to grow and get better for the following year. I think it's important.
Number one, I'm incredibly impressed with your ability to stay serious while I'm an idiot sitting here dressed like this.
Yeah, Luke, take the cap off.
No, I'm sticking with it. I'm going full Rudolph.
You haven't got good genetics. You got bad antlers there.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm a calcium deficient, I guess. I don't know. It just happens at my age. You have a hard time keeping your antler up.
Shot you'd just been like that. It needed to go. That buck's got to go.
Those two hunts, though, totally different. Like if you look at I mean, it couldn't be any different. You know what I mean? Like literally, one you climbed up a tree, and the other one you climbed up a mountain.
Yeah.
How different is that for you mentally? Do they both give you the same thing?
No. Well, no. The elk hunting is like, I would say it is in the top 5, top 3 most difficult things I've ever done in my life.
Really?
Physically, mentally, like all of it. Being away for that long, like. It is probably single-handedly the most important thing I think I've ever done in my life is going out there and doing that. It's something special. Like when I come back from that Montana hunt, I was a different person in every single way. Yeah. The physical side of things, you realize that there's other people that are on another level. No matter how fit I stay and how strong I am here and running and all the stuff I did, none of that like can prepare you for what you're going to do in the mountains. Like Brandon has been doing it his whole life and climbing those mountains. So he has built up and as he would go, he gets stronger, especially at the start of the season. And then I got to go with 2 other guys that just live and breathe it their entire lives. They don't fish all season. They're like preparing for that. And I was proud of myself that I got to keep up. Like I kept up with them the whole time, but literally up mountains, like going in at 3 a.m. and hiking 3,000 feet. Like it was mountaineering style stuff. And there was like grizzlies, heavy grizzly country. There was all these things that like the grizzly side of things, like I'm legitimately scared of grizzlies. Like I have a big fear of them because we don't have them in Australia. So there's like this intrigue of like, I want to see one, but like when you're in their country, like when we were going into the back of this Bozeman area, it's the heaviest grizzly population in the world, and there's more attacks there. Every part of me was telling me not to do it. And what's funny is I had been in the past afraid of flying. Like I grew up living in Australia, never flying, all the things that have happened. And I've had to I fought that fear all the time. And instead of like letting it disable me, I would catch that I was scared of it and just go through the motions and do it anyway. And so that's what I was doing when we were going up. 3 o'clock in the morning, we're in the snow, 20 degrees, it's snowing in our face. And I'm thinking, this is insane. But when I just did it and went through it, got through the fear, actually went past it, pushed my body way past its limits of what I thought I could do, coming out the other side of that, the growth is unbelievable. And so I just like encourage people so much to like, don't let that fear cripple you, because I know it happens to all of us, and it has happened to me. I've learned to figure out when that fear grabs me and I'm like, oh, I don't want to public speak, or I don't want to get on a plane, or I don't want to do that. I turn the opposite away and I'm like, I'm going to do it and come out the other side. And you realize, okay, it wasn't that scary. It wasn't that bad. And now I can do anything because I got through it. And so just that learning curve alone. But then the other thing is no showers, freezing cold, same clothes for days, being away from Kayla and her family, my friends I was in the mountains for 18 days, not straight. Wow. At one stage I was there for 9 days straight, and like realizing how much I missed Kayla, how much I loved her, when I got back, eating a hamburger was like, having a shower. You just had this like totally different appreciation for it, like on a level you can't imagine. And we just get so accustomed to be like, yep, burger, food's on the table, hot shower whenever you want it. It just starts to get like you expect it, and you don't really appreciate it. Coming back from that, and then I lose it. You lose it. Like Now I've been back a bit. You get used to the hot shower's good.
Yeah.
Everything's there readily available for you, and it starts to go away. So I feel like that hunt and that style is a big part of my life, what I want to make sure I'm always able to do.
So how does that hunt, such a physical climbing mountains, compare to a tree stand hunt where literally, I mean, you hear anglers talk about stand time and how that relaxes them because you're just immersed in nature, but you're not physically moving through the woods or moving through up mountains like you are when you're out on that hunt.
Yeah. We talked to Swindle about it a bunch. You know, it was awesome. For me, something resonated that Seth said was like, he said, I think it was on your podcast, he said, like, you're alone for so long in the fishing season. He doesn't like to stand hunt because you're just back alone again. Like, he wants to hunt with his mates and, you know, talk crap and give each other crap and just go and have a good time. And so I was like, man, that is true. So the elk hunting was good because you had 1-2 of yous going all the time. You had that camaraderie. But with Gerald, it's not like I got the easy end of it. He has done like
all the
pre-work. Like, he's strong and as fit as ever because he's been lugging corn bags and cut, like, using machinery, cutting down all of the thick shrubbery, like making his property like a deer heaven. And the work that he put in, I get to just walk up and he's put the stands up and in the right wind direction. He's got the feeders. He's put all of the camera work out. The pre-work for whitetail hunting is far more than like elk hunting. Elk hunting, you tend to be like, there's still a lot of involved, but the work is when you get there. The whitetail hunting, the work is pre-work, and then you get to kind of enjoy it. You get to walk in 500 yards, maybe a mile, and get up your tree stand. And then it's more tactical then. You know, I learned stuff about fishing, life and everything, just sitting with Gerald, like the wind direction, the way we came in, how they're going to circle, the way the rut works. You know, I'm just learning, just soaking it all in. And the cool thing with Gerald was he sat with me. He had double stands everywhere.
Yeah.
So he sat beside me and we just got to, and like he put the stands up so high, like if you fell, you're dead. Like you're probably not going to survive that fall. It was kind of freaky. And again, I'm got a little thing of heights, but I was like, I'm all good. Like he was super safe. We were strapped in the whole way up. And we just got to sit there and talk about stuff, whisper, and then you watch the deer come out and you get to see them just doing their thing, which is on another level. Elk hunting, I went 8 days straight, never saw an elk, like didn't see one.
Gosh.
And public land hunting is like, it's the difference between fishing in a pond and fishing on Chickamauga. Like we did like an 18-mile, 2-day tent hike one time, 18 miles in 2 days we hiked, and all of it's just uphill. It's insane. I come out of there fitter and stronger than I've ever been after doing that. But you would come out of there, no elk, nothing, come out of there, see a 500-acre land of private, and there's like 1,000 elk on it. And they're like right there, and they just know they're good up in there. They don't make mistakes. So the way I'm doing it is it's not the right way. It's just the harder way, which I like. Like if I had the money, I could go onto a ranch. You're almost guaranteed to get something. And that looks great. And I'd like to do that one day and have the opportunity. But for right now, I like doing it the proper way, which is then gives you a massive appreciation for like how tough it is. And you learn, see how much pre-work goes into it. It was the biggest learning curve of my life and hunting that I've ever had this year, learning from Brandon, Dan and Anthony, two guys that live in Idaho that I got to go with for 8-9 days. And then just the last few days of Swindle. It's just a wealth of knowledge that you couldn't get in a lifetime if you tried to do it on your own.
Something you said a few minutes ago that I don't know if it's a real thing with you. Did you ever really have public speaking fears? Like you mentioned that along things that flying and things like that. Did that bother you at one time, or does it still?
No, it's I tell people like I definitely have had it in the past, but only if I didn't prepare. Like, and so that was always a worry. So I always learned to sort of prepare well. But my biggest thing is, like, what's funny is if you tell me, if I know what I'm talking about, I have zero nerves. Like, you just say 10,000 people in front of me in a stadium talk about fishing, and I'll just go because I know what I'm talking about. And then if you had two people sat down in front of me and said, speak about something I had no idea about, I would get 100% get those fears. So I've definitely had it, but it's only been when I've hadn't been prepared, I'd say.
Yeah, no, and I think that's normal for everyone. You know what I mean? Like, I think if you don't know what you're talking about and you got to talk, it's a nerve-wracking situation. Trust me. Those hunts, did you get more from that from being immersed in nature, or was it from pushing yourself physically, or is it a combination of both?
Yeah, definitely a combination of both. You just, I gotta always look back at myself and be like, I'm a kid from Toowoomba, Australia. Most of my friends, people I know and my family have never left that little town.
Yeah.
And then I'm hunting in the mountains of Montana with, like, Brandon, one of the greatest bass fishermen of all time. So, like, I'm definitely always looking back when I'm in the middle of it, as tough as it would get. I'd be like, I've not even dreamt of it. I just would have never imagined in a million years that I would have this opportunity. So yeah, that's just being out there, the lessons that you learn, not having all the things at your fingertips, having to survive. At one stage, we went into this backcountry, and we were so high up, 10,000 feet, that this crazy storm came in, and it dropped. It was 18 degrees at the 3,000, 4,000 feet below us at the town. So up where we were, it was could have been the minuses. And we stopped for a second. We got up in there. We're in heavy grizzly country. It's dumping snow, big snowstorms coming in. It was just eerie. We were up I felt so tiny. You just felt like nothing. And we stopped, and we got so cold that I was like, my heart rate picked up. I was like, this is like not life. It was life-threatening. Like, if you didn't do something about it, you wouldn't have lived for like a couple hours. And those guys, they had all the supplies. There was like 2-3 feet of snow. They cleared that. We got branches, did all this stuff, and they lit a fire with like a flint, and we got a fire going. And then that was that appreciation of, like, we got around this fire. It was keeping you alive.
Yeah.
The warmth you had of it, and you were just sitting around it, and you felt your body coming back and your attitude changing. Normally you light a fire and you just have a fire there, whatever, it gets you warm, but up there it's on another level. So I just kept learning those lessons of, like, how much sometimes we just take every single little thing for granted all the time. And it's not until you get a reset like that I think everyone needs just a little bit in their life, especially in America and Australia, where we're just in Canada, where we're just lucky, you know, we have everything. It's incredible countries where we have everything, like, right in front of you. So it is, I don't blame anyone. It's just easy to get used to having the ease of things at your fingertips.
Yeah, no. And I think I get that same, I totally agree with the feeling small. Like when I go to Northwest Territories, Plumber's Lodge or somewhere like that, where you're literally somewhere where, like, the thing that blows me away is you look out and you're like, for as far as I can see, and you can see far because they're long, big views. You know what I mean? Nothing.
Yeah.
But as far as I can see, I'm probably the only human being. You know what I mean? And it's just a weird, like, the world has, maybe COVID's taught us in some ways how big the world really is. Because for a long time, it seemed like it's so small. Even Australia, you know what I mean? Where you look where Australia is, and it's, I know it's, you probably halfway through that flight, you're like, want to pull your fingernails out. But relatively, like, if you look at if planes go away, try to get there and tell me how long it's going to take.
No, exactly. Like, we talk about it a bit and it seems realistic, but I was like, if the power shut off right now, like, I'd be like, how would I see my family ever again? Like, imagine like in a couple of years trying, like, how do I get to Australia? But because of planes and internet and FaceTime and what we're doing, it makes it small, which has been amazing for me, because I would never have been able to do it without this technology, because I wouldn't be able to stay in touch and close with my family. So it has been incredible for that, even though it's still hard to do because everyone gets busy. And in the time change in Australia, people are just waking up. I'm just about to go to bed. It's hard to connect that way. You have to make a real effort. But technology has made you feel like, oh, well, in a day I could be back in Australia potentially if I flew. But COVID has made it tougher to think about, because I'm like, man, with everything going on, like, I don't know what's going to happen. Like, I might never see my family again. They mightn't be able to come over and meet our little baby. Like, that's kind of a scary thought to me, but you just kind of got to stay positive through it.
Yeah, I don't think we're in a situation where you won't see them again the rest of your life, Carl.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll get you there some way or another.
I'll be on my bass boat just going across the Pacific Ocean.
How nervous are you to be a dad?
I'm not really. I'm excited. I'm super excited. It was the best part about it was I was like, we made the decision to do it, and there was just one day I like woke up and I was like, I want to be a dad, like now, like I'm ready to go. That's what I want to do. And so it was cool to be able to make that decision, and Kayla felt the same. And I think we just found it helps when you find the right person and the person you want to be with forever. And just got to a stage in my life where, like, I've done a lot, but I'm only just getting started. But I also like just can't wait to have like a little girl and little boy, or that's a part of us, and I get to bring them up and show them what life's about.
Yeah, toughest thing on earth to leave, but I always tell people it's the greatest thing to come home to. You know what I mean? Like, your kids it is. And the weirdest thing is, and I guess that's part of life. Like, as you get older, me and Sarah are just starting to realize now, because our kids are getting older, where you're like, all those times when they were like 2 and 3, and you would hear like my son's feet come boom, 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 down the hallway because he had a night terror or something, and you're like, oh, my, these kids in the bed again. Those are honestly the greatest things ever. Like, it's. I totally think that life should be backwards. You know what I mean? Like, nothing would make you appreciate a temper tantrum from a 2-year-old more than just having them be a 15-year-old a few years before, because it's a whole different situation.
Heaven compared to that. Yeah.
How tough is it being away from, I know your family is Kayla and family's growing, as we said, but how tough is it being away from Australia during Christmas?
Yeah, it's the toughest thing that I have to go through by far. And, I definitely just try and like work through it. But it's bad because sometimes I'm bad for, like, if it's out of sight, out of mind a little bit, I get so busy, you're getting stuff done. And then next minute, you're like, man, I haven't spoke to anyone at my family for months and stuff's going on. And, not having family, like, I have family here, Kayla's family, and the friends that I've made has been incredible. But like, I had 27 years of my life, my entire life, like my actual best friends that I grew up through school, and my cousin Chris, who we fought and watched him go through his career, and my uncle and auntie who got me into fitness and health, and like, and losing it's my biggest thing is like, I'm always like, I just don't want to lose touch with that all the time. But like, I get busy, you get busy, and that's the hardest thing to do. Like I said, the time change when they're getting up, I'm going to bed. It's actually I have to constantly think about it and work towards it to make sure I stay up on that. And when times are tough, and I've had the toughest times through my career, I wanted my family there. then through the best times, I wanted my family there, and that's been sort of the toughest part. So, the dream for me that keeps me going is like one day I'm going to be in the Classic, standing there with you and my whole family and friends and fans from Australia are going to be waving that flag, and I'm going to look up and see them in the stands, and that's what's going to make it all worth it. And winning the Elite Series event made it, like I said, it wasn't just for me. That win just gave them something back, because they had sacrificed a lot and supported me a lot. And so to see me grind that long and be like, man, he's just not stopping, but is it ever going to happen? Like, it seemed like I'd done a lot for, and seemed like almost an impossible feat. So that win just like really helped just be like that gave them such a big boost of like, yeah, this is cool. Because seeing them, you see the Team Jocumsen page, see the fans follow them. That's the stuff that I'm like, that's given them something big to cheer for too, which gives me a boost as well. But definitely missing them. I see my sisters, she's got my little niece and nephew, and like they're growing up. They're like, I'm just seeing them shoot up, and I'm missing out on a lot. But when I look back at it, those sacrifices are just something that you kind of have to do. So, it's the toughest thing I do by far, but it's something that I try and work super hard on being better at as much as I can.
And you're missing time with them, but I wouldn't say that you're not affecting them. I mean, you're showing them, and so many people, that no matter how big your dream is or how crazy and how many people laugh at you, you can make it happen if you're willing to do it, or if you're willing to always work at it. Is there any like wacky Australian Christmas traditions that we don't do? Like, I mean, even in Canada and US, there's differences. I mean, the day after Christmas in Canada is Boxing Day, which is not a thing in the US. And I did not know what it meant, but I looked it up because enough US people said, what the heck is Boxing Day? Yeah. It's regifting day. It was when in the olden times, the really rich people that lived in houses would give their help, hand-me-downs. So as they got new stuff for Christmas, they would box up their old stuff the day after Christmas and give it to them. So it's regifting day we have. So that's one difference in Canada and the US. Is there anything different in Australia that I may never have heard of?
We have Boxing Day as well. So, it's crazy like how close Canada and Australia is. Like talking to you, when I get up close to Canada fishing, you hear the radio and stuff. I'm like, this is like Australia. Talking to Gussie, and like we have very similar sense of humors where we like just digging into your mates, like you never give them a break. You can't defend us at all. Like say the worst thing you can about me. My mates will not let up on me ever. I could win the Classic 10 times and they'd say I'm hopeless, sense of humor and all that.
That's real friends.
Yeah, real true friends. And so there's a lot of similarities between Canada and Australia. But in Australia, Christmas is in summer. So it's in the middle dead of summer. And so it's kind of funny. Like Kayla got to spend a Christmas over there like 3 years ago, I think. And like we had snow decorations and Santa's on a sleigh and like everyone's in their thongs and having a beer, So that's the one weird one. We call them thongs. So. But
shoes, flip-flops. I was going to clarify that because I was like, wow, this is a whole different
family walking around in thongs. So Aussie Christmas is like barbecues, beers, beach, like outside sort of stuff, and it's in the middle of summer. And so we have a couple of traditions. Is always like prawns. We have cold prawns. They're cooked and they sort of are wrapped in like newspaper. They'll be wrapped in a standard newspaper and they'll like put them out and you'll have maybe a bit of lemon and you just peel the cold prawns. That's like a Christmas kind of tradition. And then like my dad growing up, for Santa, he left out a beer and a mango. That was it. And so when we'd come out to the fire, the beer would be empty, which Dad drank probably, and the mango would be eaten and peeled apart, and this seed was there, and we would just freak out that Santa had eaten this mango and drunk this beer. But we found out that's what Dad wanted at the time, a beer and a mango about after we went to bed.
I thought it just explained why we leave milk and cookies, just so by the time he gets over here, he can sober up because he's been in Australia first. And the cart said, the sleigh's starting to fly a little crooked. And
he might make it sometimes if he has too many. He might hit Australia last. That's probably the deal. He finishes in Australia and gets his beer.
Well, it's a special time of year for everybody, no matter what. So you growing up, like when you see all these Christmas specials with snow and everything like that, I mean, do they even play those over there? Or like, does Santa still live in the North Pole in Australia?
Yeah, he lives in the North Pole, and we do play. There are Aussie Christmas tunes, but we do a lot of what America does. So we do follow that American kind of tradition, but just all the different holidays, America just celebrates them like way harder than we do. Like we're kind of a bit more laid back, like, oh yeah, whatever, a little bit. And America's like full on, like the craziest celebration you can get, and really get into the decorations and all of that. And we do too, but it's just a little bit more laid back.
Yeah, no, I'd say that's America, though. Like, you know what I mean? Like, well, in Canada, we have fishing tournaments, but they're nothing like these, you know?
Yeah.
One of the cool things you did recently was MeatEater podcast. You and Brandon ventured out from literally walked off the mountain and went in and did that.
How was it? Yeah, it was cool. It was cool. Steve is unreal, and like one of the, I've watched all the MeatEater episodes. He's got one of the best shows. It's crazy that he's put hunting in front of Netflix and stuff like that.
Incredible.
I watch hunting shows and I'm always like, oh man, it doesn't represent hunting very well, a lot of it. If a non-hunter saw it, you could see how they could get funny about it. Where MeatEater, he just makes everything make sense. He does everything the right way. So had a lot of respect for Steve Ranella. And so that opportunity was just insane, because I was sitting on the couch watching MeatEater, listening to his podcast a couple of days before, and got an email through Brandon and their team, and they wanted us to call in. And it just happened to be, we're in Montana. Their headquarters are in Bozeman. And we came off the mountain, and then that was another thing. Me and Brandon had been in the mountains for 5-6 days, and then we stayed at like a 5-star hotel the night before we got in. Like, we both had our own rooms, and I like got in this king size bed and turned the TV on, and I was like just laughing, just like, this is insane. And they absolutely loved the podcast. It was cool to see how many questions they had for bass fishing. I was interested to see what they thought about it. But what was crazy is, like, we're in their world. Like, he is a big fisherman. He's in the fishing world, and how little they knew about bass fishing, and like tournament bass fishing especially. Like, they had so many questions. They were so intrigued about how it all worked. And, a big thing that I want to help fix is, like, there's a bit of a bass fishermen get a name of, like, he thinks that we all just like catch these fish and let them go, and we're just infatuated with bass only and nothing else. And we buy fish from the store, but then we let a bunch of fish go. And I could see that's how he was thinking. That was his concept of a bass fisherman, because he had spoken to guys that like never kill a bass and then buy their fish from a store, stuff like that. Yeah. And I understand there's people like that. But majority of us are hunters and fishermen, outdoorsmen, and bass. You don't just like, there's animals on this world that I think are just meant to be hunted. That's what they are. They're an animal that gets hunted, and then there's predators like lions and tigers and stuff that actually just eat stuff that eats grass. Like, and I feel like a bass is like an ultimate predator. And even though it tastes all right and people eat them, there's other fish that are like almost, meant for eating, like walleye, crappie, that are young and they grow fast. They're fast growers. They have short lifespans. And that's what animals that get hunted a lot, like deer, have the same kind of thing. But an animal that grows big and old, I feel like, needs protecting a little bit. And so he was, it was good to go back and forward, talk to him about that. And they just, they had a blast, and got to ask so many questions about it all. And then Steve invited us to go fishing next year on
Cool.
his family's property. So he wants to get me and Brandon in our boats and try and like figure out the lake that he grew up on and see what we can catch out of there. And then I just suggested he needs to cook us bass after that, so we both can taste bass and see what it's like. I think that'd be cool.
I think sometimes the catch and release thing, although it's the most amazing thing, I'm totally in support of it, but I also feel like it almost has gone too extreme, to the way that somebody keeps a 2-pound bass and we're like, it's just it's the one species that you can't keep that fish or whatever. I guess muskie's the same. People will do bad things to you if you kill a muskie.
Yeah. It's definitely like a fine line. And I'd never really thought about it until a few years ago when Joe Rogan talked about it. And Joe was like, he thought it was the strangest thing ever. And the way he explained it, and I was like, man, that's so true. Like it's weird to think we live in a country, Australia, Canada, and America, where you can just let fish go. And then that's like the thing, you just let them go. And there's countries that are trying to catch fish to survive and eat, but we're just so lucky that a sport is catching them and letting them go. So putting that kind of in perspective. But yeah, at the same time, I've definitely switched my mind a little bit to more like it's definitely conservation. I love America for how the importance they put on wildlife conservation. Like they are the best in the world at it. But like this amount of people that fish and hunt and they're able to continue to keep it like at the level that it is, and it is mind blowing. And Australia could learn so much. And I need to be better at learning what I'm learning here from the way that they do it and somehow portraying it back to Australia, because we have almost the worst. It's like the water and the dams are sold for the water and it's the money on that side of things, and the wreck fishing and the hunting is like at the bottom of the list. And that in turn, like they'll drain a river. It's happened only last year, the year before. They drained a river and killed these like 100-year-old Murray cod giants, like 50, 80 pound. And they had to sell the water, and they drained it until the fish literally ran out of oxygen. And there's tackle stores and all the things that just suffered from that. And I'm like, they are fighting and wreck fishing is getting a better stronghold. But just learning to like, for me, I definitely like love the catch and release, look after the bass, but at the same time, I use my fishing skills to catch us a feed of fish, to catch us some walleye. At the Elite Series, I keep a feed of walleye, bring them home to Kayla, we cook them. That gives me the more like what I'm doing is the actual real life. That's what you're supposed to be able to do, is catch fish and be able to provide for your family. So that gives me that much more real concept of it, as well as like using the skills that I've learned to not only be able to compete at it, but also provide family and friends and stuff with a fresh feed of fish. I think it's nothing more satisfying than bringing a walleye home and, filleting it and preparing it. And, that's what I've learned about hunting too with elk and whitetail. We say it all the time now, and Kayla killed that turkey and I've killed whitetail or kill a fish. Nothing goes to waste. Ever. So like when you go to the effort to go out there and you hunt or catch something, you bring it back and you prepare it, you don't eat half the burger and throw it in the bin, there's some leftover like chicken fillets, like they aren't going to get eaten. Like everything is just gets prepared to the best and nothing gets wasted. So
makes sense
right there.
And I think that them not knowing a lot about fishing, and I think it's just we're talking about extremes. You know what I mean? When you talk to the average angler and explain things that Steve Bernella does to go to hunt, it seems strange to them. But he's the extremist at that. And in angling, I mean, this is the extreme of it, right? Yeah. It is. I wish the hunting and fishing community would work more together. I feel like there's that weird little separation, and it's very similar. So I thought that was really cool when you guys did that podcast, and I look forward to seeing you you fishing with
Yeah.
him. That'll be fun.
It was a good opportunity. I got a lot of like followers and different support from it, and got a lot of positive comments about it, that from people that watched it. You don't know how people are going to come across. It wasn't a video one. It was just, we're in a room talking, and all the feedback I got was just super positive. So it was cool to be able to bring the tournament world to his world, and people get to listen to it. And now we brought probably a whole, a decent group of people that are on that side over to get a good perspective of what tournament fishing's about. But that was another thing. Like, one of our main jobs, I think, is what we do that we don't get brought up, is we basically teach people to fish. Like, that is one of our main jobs. And so I think it's really cool. Like, it just doesn't get talked about that much, but really at the end of the day, our number one job is to teach other people how to fish. That's literally what we're doing, even when we don't know we're doing it or we're not trying to do it. That's kind of our biggest job, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, and that's Bass Live, if you ask me, and especially the last number of years. I mean, it's gone through an evolution. Like, a number of years ago, we had anglers covering their baits, hiding, and then how, like, just to say that, you laugh, but it's true. I laugh every time I hear it now, because it just seems so weird that at one time we had anglers covering their baits so nobody could see them. And now you have people explaining everything, how to fish a fish, what I'm having for lunch, which is a weird thing that you guys have to compete and do that. Does that ever frustrate you, or is nothing you think about?
No, that's it's definitely getting a little bit frustrating as far as like, how do I explain that? Like, every time we're on live and we're teaching high school, college, and open anglers, and they're watching our spots, our areas, our techniques, we're single-handedly making our job way harder. Like, we are teaching people how to take our job. Like, that's at the end of the day, like, that's kind of what we're doing, and it's working great, because the college and open anglers are just getting better and better and just turning into absolute hammers, and the spots are getting harder and harder to find, because they can watch it and see it, and that's how they found it, and that's where it is, and then that just it just makes our job harder. But at the same time, you shouldn't look at it like that, because it's the best thing that ever happened for bass fishing. So I'm torn a little bit, and I spoke at the angler meeting, and I want to speak more like that, trying to just I don't know, I want to see it get a little bit better in a different way, as when you make it to the Elite Series, just being able to feel a little bit more stable there. You've worked super hard to get there, and not sort of I don't know, have that as big a pressure as if you get out of there. It's a big difference between being there and not.
So how do they do that? Less cuts? Is that what you propose?
Yeah, I think now that the field is lower, less cuts, and just a little bit tougher to get in to the. It's tough. It's the hardest thing in the world to do. But 12 guys each year is a lot to roll out when you start getting into 12 guys that are living. That's their full-time job. That's their tournament career, and their next level down is back to the opens. There's that side of things, and I just think my biggest one is, I feel like you need way more training and more you need the better all-round skills of being a fisherman, having sponsors and support before you make it to the elites. It's just that gap in between opens and elites is literally high school football to the NFL. Like, there's not a middle road there. And I got caught up in that. And so I want to see it change, because I see these rookies coming in that their eyes are this big, and they're like, I haven't got a sponsor yet. And I've just went from 3 tournaments a year within a state or two of my home, paying $1,500 entry fee, to paying $5,000 entry fees 9 times, with needing the sponsors, full wrapped boat and truck, and traveling the entire country. that is a jump that most people don't realize they're getting into. And that's what I got into. And I found myself like in a lot of trouble between 2015 and 16, where I was like, man, I wish someone told me this. And I just didn't have that. It seemed like I was going to get there and I was going to be done. It was going to be all fairy tales from then on.
But do you think, to play devil's advocate to that?
Yeah.
Because I'm looking, when I think of the first time I met you and what your dream was.
Yeah.
And then if I pull back and look at the life you're living right now, and I know you guys have to work incredibly hard. So I think in some ways it's worked incredibly well, but I also would wonder, do you not think that feeling is a feeling that people who get drafted in the NFL feel, people who get drafted in any sport really, because I feel like that's kind of how life, you're like, hey man, I'm going to make it to this. And then it's going to be,
yeah.
Really, you find out when you get there, even if it is easier, obviously it's easier. A league minimum contract in the NFL is easier to get by with, but they also have some downsides to their life too that don't make it easy. But I think that's almost in some ways, and I'm not saying that things don't need to change and always evolve, but I also think that's part of life, right?
Yeah.
Like where you get there and you're like, whew, I'm married now. Oh, I've got that taken care of. And then you're like, well, if you don't work on your marriage, you won't be married. If you don't work, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no, 100%. Like those trials and that stuff I went through made me to the person I am today. Like I wouldn't trade them for anything. Those tough times, they make tough people. Like, and it has made me the person I'm so stoked with, like the human I'm becoming. And it's because I've had that hard road. When these young guys come to me, I have something to tell them. Like, and I have that experience, like to be able to talk like this and talk about my road. So definitely torn in between that, and 100% know what you're saying. And I don't want it to be easier for anyone. No. I just feel like it needs to be better in a way, as in we're not asking for the world. It just needs to get better. Like when you get to this level, it just needs to get better. It doesn't mean that you don't need to work any harder. It needs to be better when you get there. So like, it's great, but if you don't work, like, it's not going to be great. So you're going to need to grind, but when you get there, it should be incredible. And I found that I was in a definitely, I didn't realize how much $50,000 worth of entry fees is hard to gather up, like stuff like that. I'm like, just explaining more. So you almost know what you're in for. That's like, I reckon the number one thing in my life that has been the toughest is getting blindsided. Like, blindsided by someone that you thought was your friend that isn't. Blindsided by the way you thought it was going to go and you were thinking a different way, and it just comes and knocks you. It's the hardest lesson to learn. It sucks, but you do learn. You don't make that mistake twice. That's the good thing about when that happens. But also just having more of a feeder to where, like, if you're going to come this direction, or if you're in college, just having more of an understanding of how tough it actually is going to be, so you know what you're in for. But like what you said, I wouldn't trade that adversity or anything, because now it takes a truck to hit me for me to be able to go like, oh, that was a bit rough. Like anything can like happen, and I shrug it off, and I see a little tiny bit of adversity that I face on a daily happen to someone, and they go to water, and I'm like, dude, that's nothing. Like, just keep doing it or whatever. But and then I'm like, oh, you haven't seen like that hard thing. So you should welcome that adversity just as much as you welcome the good times. But I just want to see it. I just want to see fishing get better. I want to see bass get better. I want to see it grow. And I want to see, that's the main thing. I just want to see it get better for all of us. And for the future, I want to be a part of that. I feel like I've got a good mindset that balances not what just good for me. I want to see what's good for everything. The guys that are personalities and drawing big crowds and drawing the views should be getting paid more. And if you're not, then, you need to step it up or fish harder or whatever. But making it better for the angler and on bass is like one thing that I just want to try and work on. I don't like sitting back. I have sat back for a long time, and I'm like, I just want to be able to talk about it. It makes you feel way better. You and me just discussing it, talking about ideas. I feel like that meeting was awesome, and we just we got to just talk about stuff. Let them know how we feel. They let us know what's happening. People talk, and then something good could happen for it.
I mean, the goal should always be to make it better. I mean, honestly, that should. I mean, last week's guest, Mark Menendez, that's a lot of what he talked about. Making things better. And I totally agree with you there. I mean, and if you don't think it's tough, like when you look at the cuts, look at this year's cuts. Now, fast forward 12 months from now.
Yeah.
Read the 12 names you're going to have to cut.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And and then 12 months down the road from that, there's another 12. And I totally get from you. I mean, it's you're running on a treadmill just to keep up. But I also feel like that is also probably what anyone feels at I feel like if a bunch of things changed and you said, like, whatever we wrote on paper right now, I feel like you're almost one of those people that's always going to feel like I got to keep hustling. I got to, because the level you're at now, if I'd have said to you 10 years ago, 10 years from now, you'll live here, you'll be expecting a baby, a beautiful, like, you'd be like, hey, where do I sign up?
Yeah.
But human nature is when you get there, you still want to keep driving. Now you feel like, well, yeah, I do have a beautiful wife and a baby on the way. I got to provide for them. We got to work to make this better.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that, that's the biggest thing is I'm definitely never satisfied, which is what pushes me to be here. For me to be happy, I have to see progress in every sense, in everything, in my relationship, with my friendships, every single thing. For me, the only way I can be happy is when I see that progress with my sponsors. If I don't see that progress, I'm like, it hurts me. And then so in my career, and so everything I'm looking at, when stuff stays the same and it sits a little bit long and it doesn't progress, that's my sort of worst thing. But that's why I'm where I'm at. I think it's because I want to always, I'm not satisfied with just that. I have those goals and dreams, and then I need to progress, up towards them. And I think we, as bass fishermen, a lot of people think like that. So that's what drives Brandon to win 5 in an AOY and want to win the next one, like just as bad as he did the first one.
Yeah, it's his drive is incredible, but I feel like you guys all have that. And it's when I hang out with you, it's not just fishing. It's when you guys start showing pictures of deer, it's a contest. When you guys like cornhole becomes, like live or die. Yeah. Has that been your whole life? You've been that ultra competitive person, like growing up playing sports and stuff?
Yeah, but just psycho on it, like losing. Honestly, I like losing in like even elk hunting. Like when I was coming back from a day with Dan on my final day and we didn't get one, like it felt like I'd lost. Like I got that feeling. I had to like snap myself out of it and be like, look where you are and look what you're doing. But I got that feeling. I can't stand it when I miss the check and I have a bad event in an elite series. Like I fight as hard as I can not to feel like, like it feels like death. Like it's the worst. I can't even explain it. So like I fight as hard as I can not to have that feeling because I don't want to have it. And so as a kid, and my family on my cousin Chris's side, I mean, my dad didn't let me win. We played table tennis. He didn't let me win until I was like 16 years old. Like he just never let me win. And like, I thank him for it. Cause when I won, it was like, I knew then he didn't let me win. Like he was trying as hard as he could. And so, I played rugby from a kid right through high school, and like you didn't want to get hit by me. I was like in high school and primary school, I was the shortest kid. But like if the kid got the ball, like I would die tackling them as hard as I possibly could. Like kids didn't get up, and they're like they don't want to get tackled by me because I'm not there to play. Like I'm there to win. And so I played all sorts of sports growing up, and that's just how I was. And my cousin, he's just like. He's a natural freak. of nature, when athletic, and I can't beat him at anything, and I try as hard as I can, and he can just beat me in running, beat me in everything. But the one edge I have on everyone is fishing. I've always had that little edge. I have that mindset, and I've always just had the passion for it. And so I always gravitated towards that, no matter what sport I played, how good I got at it. I just always went back to fishing. And so that was just my passion. So when I found the competitive side to that, I jumped all over it. But you have to have that nature of where if you're playing a little game of basketball out front, like, you want to win more than anything.
Every one of you guys, that you all are like that. You know, it amazes me. It's like, and it's almost like I realize now, like, all the parents that are telling their kids, oh, you know, it's okay, you know, we should all get equal time. None of you are good losers, but I also think that makes you a winner. You know what I mean? Like, you can't throw a temper tantrum, obviously, like it's used to, but I mean, you should hate losing. At no point should you ever, no matter what you're doing, at no point should you be like, oh, well, that was okay. It was his time to win. You know, it should burn in you to always want to win. You brought up your childhood. What is the greatest Christmas gift you ever got as a kid? Or like that one, everybody's got that one that, like, I need my Red Ryder BB gun or whatever it is. What was it for you?
Yeah, I knew it straight away as soon as you said it. And it's the day I found out that Santa wasn't real, which is, so I'm torn. But
spoiler alert for those
spoiler alert. I just remember it was my granddad bought us our first boat, and it was a wooden boat, and literally it was a wood boat with 2 oars in it, and it was on a trailer, and I was just so ate up with fishing, and my dad was so busy. It was very hard. I would just go wherever I could, ride my bike. I was crazy. And Christmas morning, I looked out the window and I seen it sitting in the yard, and my logical brain thought, there's no way Santa brought that. And that's when I was like, and then Granddad bought it for us, and I said to Dad, did Santa really bring this boat? He's like, no. And he's like, your granddad bought it. And I'm like, damn. But yeah, that boat really, like, fed a lot of my passion. I've got so many memories. And then the first time we got a Minn Coda on it, put a battery in it, and it used to fill with water, and when the water was like up halfway up your thighs, that's when it was time to, like, head back. Like, you couldn't keep up with the bucket, and and it just grew from there. But yeah, got that wooden boat for one Christmas, and that was the end of me.
Those amazing gifts, you'll never forget. I mean, you will never forget that feeling, you know, of that boat, and what the freedom that gave to you. I mean, and we get so spoiled. You know, you look at how boats are equipped. Like, I remember rowing in between each dock to fish docks, and I would anchor out in front of them. But it's that drive to want to be out there.
This is a question that you would have a good answer to, I feel. My big concern is, like, my kid, if their first boat is going to be $100,000 Falcon with the Yamaha on it, like that, to me, like, that digging the worms and, like, seeing people in a boat being like, and, like, the first time I got invited on the boat, I was like, no way, like, this guy's going to let me on this boat. And it was just a 10-foot, like, tinny with a 4 horsepower on it. And so, like, the progress of my life, I'm so thankful for, because it was a slow progression. It just kept getting better and better. And it was like, now I had my own boat, or, like, I appreciated being off the bank, and then I got a kayak, and then that was awesome. So, like, I worry when I see these kids, it's definitely up to the parents, because I've seen kids where their parents have everything and they're super grateful, and they're casting off the front deck of a bass boat, and they're super grateful. So that's the battle I think I'm going to have the most, is like, and I'm sure successful people have had that, where they went through the grind, and then their kids get it good, but then teaching them, having the appreciation for everything. You know, how do you do that?
I think it's tough. Like, I think it really is, but I think that's part of being a parent and teaching them. You know what I mean? Like, the boat that you had, I'm sure if you talk to your family, that was a bass boat. What was that? You know what I mean? Compared to their childhood, and that feeling that you got looking at that boat. So, we've always just been really careful too, also to tell our kids, like, this isn't normal. You know what I mean? Like,
we got it good. We're doing good.
We've got it really good. And I think one of the things that makes it easier for kids, and it's one of the toughest things they go through, but kids that have parents that do similar jobs to us, we're gone a lot. So at least they see that, like, they see the sacrifices that are made, you know what I mean, to make sure. So I think it's just teaching them to value things and work for it. None of this came for free. But the other thing that amazes me is, as kids get older, they want to prove themselves too. You know what I mean? Like, my son, a fish is much more valuable to him if he catches it out of his John boat and he goes out himself and he's so proud to come back and tell me, exactly how the fish ate, and, just like a conversation we would have, but it's a different experience than they would. I think I spoiled my kids, to be honest. I ruined them fishing wise. I brought them to the best places. I mean, now they go fishing for 3 minutes. They're like, I haven't caught anything. This sucks, Dad.
Get us on the juice. We want them every cast. Yeah.
But it's, you know what I mean? Like, I think every kid, here's the other truth. Every kid is also going to feel like they're hard done by. That's the honest truth, no matter what you give them. I don't know. I mean, I think that them seeing you, I think the biggest thing a parent can do is just show them. Like, I think kids learn more from their parents just watching than they ever do from you sitting down. And if I sit down with Jack or Cadence and I tell them something, they learn the real stuff that they learn in the person they become, the person you are, the work ethic you have. That's from what you saw growing up. Yeah. You know what I mean? 100%. Like,
didn't get told you better work hard, you better do this. I just saw the people around me, how hard they worked, and it rubbed off on me. I didn't even see them and think that's how hard I'm going to work. I just became like that.
Yeah. It's
seeing it.
I mean, it's what they see. Like, I will tell you, one of the things that my family, I mean, we're immigrants. We immigrated to Canada from Ireland. So a lot of times when you move to a new country, I mean, it takes forever to get stabilized, literally. And so we were broke a lot growing up. And I think my dad did something that I am so proud of, but I probably would have been embarrassed of back then. And I don't think I've ever talked about it publicly, but I'll tell you, but it was one of the greatest lessons. My dad worked in insurance, and he was an insurance salesman, and then, worked into management or whatever, but we were still broke. I mean, we're new to, so he literally took a job delivering pizzas. And I think about that now, and I think about what feeling must have gone through his mind every time he rung a doorbell. Is this going to be one of my clients? You know what I mean? And not that there's nothing wrong with delivering pizzas, but if you think, do you want your insurance salesman or your insurance broker or whatever, so you just think of, but my dad didn't give a crap, because he's like, it's more important that I work and provide for my family. So you take something like that and you're just like, that's that. I learned so much from that. So I guess, I mean, it to me, it's, you learn from what you see. And one thing I can guarantee you is your kid, whether they fish in that boat behind you or they fish in that boat that you got when you were a little kid, they're going to see a hard work ethic. They're going to see somebody who is relentless and won't take his foot off the pedal. Both you guys, you and Kayla. So I wouldn't worry about that, but they will be spoiled little brats. Yeah. Look at that behind you. I mean, do you know how many people tuned into this and right away was like, who's the idiot and the reindeers? And I just want to be in Carl Jocumsen's garage right now.
Yeah, I've definitely had this vision of this shop like almost my whole life, and it's getting there now. I just looking at it, I'm like, this is awesome. Just being in here, it's pretty cool.
All right, we got the season ahead. We've hardly talked about fishing on this fishing podcast. So quickly tell me what you're looking forward to. What's the outlook on the upcoming season? A fresh slate, no pressure.
Yeah,
but there's always pressure.
Yeah, it's always like I'm learning to deal with these off seasons a little bit better. It's like the worst time, like because you're so stressed out about getting your boat, getting it wrapped, getting the design sponsors. You never write so many emails. It's kind of insane. It's a lot of the stuff that most people don't see. You just pop up, no, you got a wrap truck and boat, cool, ready to go, and they don't see what goes in behind that. But everything's looking good. I'm very fortunate. I've got my boat. Yamaha's on the way. I'll be taking it to Nashville, Anderson's Marine, hopefully on Monday to get the Yamaha fit up. Got all of my graphs, the troller motor, Humminbirds. So everything's here, which not everyone has because it's been kind of crazy. So I'm fortunate in that. There's a lot of guys that are going to be probably running their same boat from this year, next year, with the shortage of so much stuff.
It's crazy. Like, that's real. Like, yeah. I've heard from a lot of pros that literally have been told, we can't get you a motor this year. We can't get you How is that going to affect things? I mean, I
don't know. It's like some guys have lucky to where, like, the sale of my boat is a big deal, like it's a big thing at the end of the year that gets us rolling into the next year. So like keeping my boat wasn't really an option. But I got lucky. I sold it to a guy that did the Bassmaster Open experience with me. And he was like, hey, if you need it, and he was going to keep it wrapped and be ready to go. So a lot of guys are so awesome like that.
Yeah.
But I'm fortunate. But yeah, a lot of guys are just going to be rolling into, I think, next year into their boats from this year, and then have to trade through next year. So that's been the biggest hurdle, I think, is just product. And and foreseeing future product, trying to get baits in that I get my calendar up, I look at all of the schedule, and then I'm like, okay, this one I'm going to need this and this. I write a list down and I do an order from my sponsors and some from the tackle warehouse, and I get it all in. And there's been shortages on stuff that even tackle that you need, line, like all sorts of stuff. But other than that, it looks good. I'm pretty happy with where I'm at. Got wrap designs, everything happened. When I get that feeling of like, okay, I've got things organized, it feels good. I get to go fishing or do a bit of hunting. But even with Swindle, it's like I could have stayed for a couple more days, and I'm like, I knew I had these emails and these things to get back, and I'm like, I got to go because I can't enjoy the hunting when that stuff's. I can't sit there and enjoy it. So I have to go and get it all done. So I'm organized, and then hopefully I can get back or get some hunting done here. But schedule looks good. The little baby she's going to be due very close to when I need to leave to Florida. So that's going to be the interesting one.
Yeah, but that's good because there's like a baby due pattern. Like a lot of people win tournaments right around when their babies do.
I'm expecting to win St. John's. I'll just say that. If you're on fantasy team, get me on there. Even if I have half day practice or no practice, we'll start on day 2. But no, that's going to be interesting. So we'll just play it as it comes there. And then after that, the schedule looks great. I think this is the best schedule Bass has ever done. The only thing I would have changed is change the day to St. John so it's not as close. Like, I don't mind going back to the same fisheries. I just don't like when it's the exact same time as the previous year. That makes it difficult because if you hit that same weather pattern, you're going to see a pretty similar tournament, and then it's hard to get around where guys caught them the year before. Like, you don't want to go there, and then you find yourself like, I've got to find this area.
How does that work? Like, I get it that, you guys sorted out day 1, day 2, whatever. But like, if a guy, you can't just own a stretch for, like, we go there every year. So you guys can't own stretches from previous years, can they? Or do they?
They definitely do. And you just gotta, that's like, like Hackney figured out that Cypress knee deal. And so like, that's what's frustrating to me. It's like, well, if you go and do that, try and find it somewhere, like, it's like, oh, well, you just saw him, you get a little bit of that. I hate that feeling. But you're better off just going and finding your own things. But there just are some lakes, especially the Kentuckys and the Pickwicks and stuff. When you have it and it's a full offshore deal, it's kind of a nightmare. Yeah. The year before you weren't on that school, but you idled past it this time and they're there. So like, you're going to fish it, and then you show up, it's a tournament a year later and they're frustrated with you or something like that. So there's a bit of a balance in that. But Santee Cooper, awesome. Like probably could be the best tournament ever in history of that.
Really could.
That has the potential to do that. The one I'm most excited about is Oahe. And so I went there on my way out elk hunting. So we left.
You didn't get to go there last time we were there.
Yeah. So I watched the
Okay.
Elite Series and it was pretty tough, looked tough. Weights were really low. And so the way it was working for us to head up to Idaho to elk hunt was right through the end of August when the tournament's going to be on La Crosse in Oahe. So my practices these days, I only do them if they're going to be like worthy practice days. I'm not going to fish La Crosse in the spring when our tournament's in August. It's worth, if you've never been there, it's worth driving around, but fishing is just, it's going to throw you off. It's hard to forget about those things that you saw. But it was literally right on that date, and then Oahe's the next day. So I'm like, these are two worthy amounts of time. And so I put 5 days on La Crosse, and then we drove across and put another 5 days on Oahe before we headed across there. And it was probably the best smallmouth fishing I've ever had in my life. So
wow, that's saying a lot because you've been to some pretty awesome places.
I've been to some good places. Size-wise, not as good, but I caught a couple of 5-pounders every day, which is like a giants anywhere you go. But one day between 11 o'clock and dark, I caught over 100 smallmouth. I was catching them every single cast, and like 30 and 40 were coming up at one time and just swimming around the boat. And I was like, this is going to be a different tournament next year. So people and the guys are going to get to see something pretty special, I think.
And we're at the better end of the lake this time, I believe. Yeah. Last time, the big thing was there's no gas in between. Yeah. So literally you could only run as far as your gas would get you. Yeah. But this time they won't, the runs won't be near as bad, which probably means all the fish will be back down the other end of the lake.
The winter will come back from the boat ramp where they were a couple of years ago. It can get rough. It can get nasty. It blew up a couple of days and I was like, whoa, this place can get pretty nasty. So that'll be interesting. And it was 18 feet low when I was there. So that gave a whole different look to it as well. But that's the one I'm like most excited about.
A lot of people excited about that one. Yeah. I think it'll be a great tournament. It's a really cool part of the world. I mean, we saw the Badlands when we were up there last time. I mean, which is literally, you feel like you're in Jurassic Park. Like you stand there and you're like, it could be Star Wars. It could be Jurassic. It's just such a cool part of the world. But you know what's not cool? My head. I mean, I've really committed to this thing, and I regretted it about 3 minutes after I committed to it. But it's hard work. Hard work pays off. We talked about that. But this podcast is overheating, Carl. I have one last question for you. What is your New Year's wish to the bass fishing community?
The bass fishing community, my New Year's wish is for, I think just all of us, everyone, as far as humans, just to come together, be more understanding of each other and support each other a lot more. And my biggest thing is keeping our lakes clean, and that's going to be a big push that I'm going to do after this year and seeing some of the lakes. I want all of us to get together and there's always big pushes to keep the oceans clean and stuff. We're in the lakes all the time. I want everyone to make sure that we leave the place clean for the next person and respect the bass, the tournaments, and continually work hard to make this sport the best it can be. And so I think all of us need to come together and do that.
Well, I thank you for this time, and I wish you a very Merry Christmas. And I look forward to. Here's my prediction. This upcoming classic will be the last classic that I don't have a sea of Australian maniacs with flags and music and all sorts of craziness and shoeies.
Beer cats, shoeies. I want beer. I got to see beer hats with the 2 cans of Foster's.
About time. I mean, I thought the Canadians would have brought it. I mean, Corey chugged a beer on stage, but we need fans with the
double straws. We need shoeies, double straws. We need flags. It's going to be. We need to show Canada how the Aussies do it. It might be a bit of a battle on there.
Well, I think they'll just gravitate to each other because that's generally what drunk people do. I mean, they find each other and they have a good time. But always a good time talking to you.
Thanks, mate.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, mate. Appreciate having us on.
Good googly moogly. That was a horrible idea. Carl Jocumsen was right. I should have took the hood off. Never, ever go full Rudolph during a podcast because I'm a sweaty mess right now. But I regretted 3 minutes after saying I was sticking with it. But I was like, oh, it's going to be awkward if I take it off now and it's going to get all twisted and whatever. But now it's just awkward for me personally, not for all of us. So I did that for you guys. And speaking of doing things for people, I thank Carl Jocumsen for making the time during the holidays to do this show with me. And I thank each and every one of you guys for tuning in week after week. I mean, this has been an incredible journey. This is our 36th show. And in 36 weeks, we went from 35,000 YouTube subscribers to now over 70,000. It grows every day. It grows every week because of the amazing support from you guys. And I can't thank you enough for everything you've done for me, for my family, just by simply watching this show, for all of the guests that were kind enough to come on. It's unbelievable. And I can't thank you guys enough. You have no idea how much your support and encouragement and just simply by supporting this, you really have no idea how much it means to me and all of us. So thank you very much. And one guy that I do need a very special thank you to, he does our intro and our outro every single week. Well, he did it once and we just play it over and over again. But the amazing Bob Cobb. Thank you, Bob Cobb, for everything you give us and everything you have given this entire sport. And enjoy being. Merry Christmas. Take it away, Bob Cobb.
Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe because Bob Cobb of the Bassmaster told you to. You hear?